happy Friday, and excited to welcome everybody back for another episode of the Friday Love, Learn, and Leadership Show, which we're doing for the second time this semester, and shifting a little bit of what we've done in the past with the Love and Learn to incorporate leadership, to reach out to our building level leaders from across the state here in education. And excited today to be joined by Jeff Wagner of Bellevue East High School and Sarah Fiel, athletic director at Elkhorn High School, for this week's conversation. And so a little bit of backstory. Jeff was a principal for me actually when I was at Westside, and so got a chance to know him pretty well. And then Sarah, I also got to meet. We've known each other for years now because her husband worked with me at Westside also. And so, and we should make the connection too that Jeff and Sarah, you want to speak to how, you all work together?
Yep, I was fortunate enough to have Jeff as a principal at Bellevue East for me as a teacher and coach, and he's a phenomenal leader, and I think I learned a lot of lessons from him into the role I am in now. So I just thank Jeff for all of his leadership at Bellevue East.
It's easy when you have people like Sarah. She's a born leader and one we're sad to see go, but she's ready for that new adventure, and she's doing an awesome job. I hear positive stories already about what she's doing in the culture and climate at Elkhorn. And she's going to be a fantastic leader for years to come, for sure.
Gosh, yeah, I just love seeing, staying in touch with people's educational journeys and seeing where those roads go and all the great work that we're doing collectively for kids across Nebraska and in this case here in the Metro. So our Love and Learn and Leadership Show gives us a chance to talk about the things that we loved from this week. And that's really where we're going to start things off. This could be personal, could be professional. But just sharing something that really meant a lot to you over the course of the last 5 days. So Jeff, if you'd start us off, what was your love from this week?
Yeah, I think for me, just the love is kind of the excitement that's starting to build in our student leadership groups as we get into the year with homecoming. Our Leadership Academy students are planning trick or treat night. So we're bringing that back where the community comes and in costumes and does the trick or treat night. They're planning trivia night. And just kind of starting to work with those students in the building and staff on just the events that are coming up. The students take part of it. They get excited. They initiate it. They drive it. They plan it. So it's just exciting to see the positive spin. And it's outside of the regular school day. It's extracurricular. It's the door decorating contest. It's the homecoming parade. It's the fireworks show. It's the dance. Like I say, Halloween night, trick-or-treat night is a big night that's been growing. And so it's just fun to work with students, on things that are positive and happening not only for your school, but the community. And that's the best part of the job for sure. And it's been a great week so far.
Oh, there's so much excitement that comes around that from the learners too. My daughter's 10 and is in 5th grade, and they're now just getting to the place where they have student council and they can choose to be in band or strings. And like you're saying, that's happening in her building as well. And she's, all looking forward to that and Unified Activities Club. And that's awesome that there's so many opportunities for students to connect and to take part in those memorable events. So that I feel like in the last 2 years, we've kind of lost some of that at times. So before we pivot, we got a shout out here actually. So getting some love from maybe a former student there, perhaps?
No, that's my sister. She's a teacher at Anderson. Yeah, she's a teacher at Anderson Middle School. So hi, Lissa. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for popping on.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. If you have a love yourself, we would love to have you share that in the comments section, and we can bring those in just like we did there and hear from you live as we're going through this. But that being said, Sarah, what is your love from this past week?
There's been a couple of big ones. This is also our homecoming week. And so to piggy off of Jeff a little bit, one of the most fun events for me was we did our first kind of outdoor big pep rally, and we did tailgate was the theme. And so we had a food truck out front of the stadium. And then what was really special about the night was we had all of our kids, not just kids that are in activities or in the marching band or in our athletic programs, but we had freshmen who were new to our school that were all out on our stadium field doing yard games. So it was really cool to see just kids eating food, hanging out, kind of like what Jeff was talking about, just building that culture of community in our building. And I really enjoyed watching our senior class embrace those freshmen, bring them in, make them feel comfortable. And that kind of tied to my second love, which was what I was also going to say, which is we're now full in on our tutoring programs. So when I come into the building, one of the most fun things for me to see in our counseling office and in our study halls is before and after school tutoring. And this is when our seniors are tutoring students on their own accord before and after school. And I just think that that's awesome experience for them in leadership. It's awesome experience for those kids who are struggling in whatever content areas, that they're not getting help just from their teachers, but they're getting help from our student leaders in the building. So I told some seniors just yesterday in the hallway, that just really means a lot that they're dedicating all that extra time and helping our underclassmen learn the ropes of what high school is going to look like for the next 4 years. So yeah, those are pretty cool moments for me this week.
How terrific too for them to take like the pride in academics and to that degree, right? For you to like feel like you have something to impart to somebody else, like there is a sense of ownership over that moment and experience and the pride that comes with it. And so that's terrific. I'm going to ask real quick, because you were talking about yard games a moment ago. What's your favorite? Did you go out there and play?
Okay, I love cornhole. The big
I
debate.
know you're competitive.
I am super competitive. So I also love to play the music. So I was doing a lot of help with the DJing up in the booth. But I will say I love cornhole. That's my favorite. And I did challenge some of our seniors to bags, as I call it.
Yep.
But I unfortunately didn't get to play much. I was a little busy, but definitely cornhole for sure.
Jeff, how about you?
I like just about anything outdoors. One of the things we did for our freshman orientation was the Leadership Academy kids do some games out on the field, kind of team building games. And so I did some reaction time games, and I have to say I'm the undefeated champion. So I think I was 3-0 on some reaction time stuff against students. So you got to go up against the students, and you got to sometimes show them the old guy still has it a little bit. So I was able to reach down and grab those items before they could. And so I walked out with the championship belt.
Nice.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I feel like my reaction time got better when I was a parent for whatever reason. I don't know if I just had to be on alert a little bit more, but yeah, I totally get that. Well, good job by both of you here. I'm going to definitely stay away from any competitions with y'all in the yard games. We got a love from this week from your sister here. So let's bring that one up for a quick moment. Hearing how supportive staff in our building has been this week, been out all week for surgery. Hopeful sending good vibes, getting better, and a quick recovery with that. So many teachers helping out at school, covering, checking in with students. Amazing how teachers come together. I agree, to support each other, and that's so important. And get a chance to listen to your sister here. So that's terrific. That's so terrific. Sarah, anything to say to that?
I know it was a tougher week. Whenever you have to be out of the building, I think it just shows a lot about her staff she's surrounded with. Like everybody was willing to help, go a little bit extra. My sister does a lot of co-teaching. And so I know that's tough when your co-teacher is gone. And so I think one of the great things about our job is that we rally around each other in those times too. And I think this year, just like last year, I think you see teachers doing that every day. And so it's nice to hear when it's obviously for my sister, but for any teacher, that even when they're gone, that there's a building taking care of them when they can't be there.
Oh gosh, absolutely. Better together. Love schools. Love all the good vibes with that. And like I said, wish her a quick recovery from having gone through that. I'll share my love very briefly this week. I am about 15 months into this role and did not really get to do much in person. And so we actually had our statewide PDO, which means all the staff developers and people from across Nebraska came together to chat professional development and plan some initiatives. And so took this picture actually of some of those great people as they met here at ESU3 this week. And it just felt really good to chat with folks in person who I've been Zooming with for the better part of a year and never had really met and got a chance to shake their hands. So that was just really meaningful in those times. We were busy for 3 days straight, but it was a joy. And so I was really grateful for that. So we'll pivot now to the learn from this week. And so sometimes it's hard to parcel this out because the things that we love are the things that we love learning, right? In education. But Jeff, what was your learn from this past week?
Well, I'm gonna sidestep that a little bit because I'm gonna give you one that I learned that probably isn't necessarily real positive. I learned a little bit about the licks that's going on TikTok and social media. The devious licks is what it is. And, man, I know the impact of social media and you hear it, see it, but man, how fast that works throughout the metro area was crazy. I didn't even know about it, I think, until maybe Tuesday when my communications director said, "Hey, have you seen anything on this? The news is reaching out. Other schools have seen this happening." And I was clueless. I said, "Haven't heard of it, haven't seen it." I watched a couple of the videos, and literally within 2 hours, we're starting to see it in our building, with some of the destruction in the bathrooms. And I was like, how fast does that go? And then you start thinking back, well, last Friday we had some, a towel dispenser ripped off. Was that part of this? And I think as, educational leaders, sometimes you think you have it all figured out, but man, kids are pretty smart, and kids do those things. They see that stuff. And so social media can be so positive for us at school. But man, I really learned, on a negative aspect, how fast some of those things can steamroll. And thankfully we didn't have anything super major. But I know some of the news channels covered some things. Some of the colleagues in other schools are seeing things, even down to middle school. And it's just amazing how fast that trend or that piece on social media went. So much, where you have to make a statement at school and you got to talk to kids about, see it, report it, take pride in your school. And, and again, that's just a couple of kids, but it makes an impact. And you do have a lot of kids that stand up. So there's a little bit of a love for that too, that are coming up and saying, you know what, I don't like that, kids are treating our school that way. And but yes, I learned a little bit firsthand how fast some of those things on social media can go. That's probably a negative, but certainly a learning experience for me.
Yeah, no, I think all buildings were probably dealing with that this week. I know we had, and we had small incidents as well. We were lucky not to have anything too major happen, but yeah, it definitely keeps you as an administrator in the building on your toes, because you feel like you have to really be more vigilant with kids, and you want to make sure that you're keeping track of what's going on even before and after school, because some of this stuff was even happening not just during school time too. So yeah, definitely a learn for the week.
Yeah, and it's just disruptive. It changes whatever you think you have planned for the day. Sometimes shifts and changes. And as a building leader, all of a sudden you're doing bathroom checks and monitor checks, and you're documenting. And so those are the things that come in. Sometimes you're not ready for, but you deal with it.
Yep.
Well, and I love too, Jeff, that you shared there. And so how do you address that, right? And I do think, as you shared there, school culture, can help limit that, or when you have that peer-to-peer keeping people in check. And I think it's also, as you mentioned too, having your staff address it and talk about it, yes, I see this and we understand this, but in open forum, hey, we can't let this be what happens. This is our place. And is there anything else you kind of add to that you feel like this week was, some of the communication to hopefully combat some of that?
I think I'm one of those, I kind of hit things head on, good, bad, ugly. Teaching and being in a school is tough. Teaching's a hard profession. And I think you gotta have honesty, openness, and you can't be willing to run from the bad things and promote the good things all the time. I mean, it is what it is. And so I think staff appreciates that communication. I think families appreciate the communication. I think kids do too. It's kind of that, I don't know, it's honest, genuine, feedback or openness. It's your school. I tell the kids all the time, it's your school. I just get to work here.
Yeah.
And I think you have to have that mentality sometimes.
Yeah. And I do think there, like a lot of your really strong student leaders step up a little bit this week too, and just talk about how that's not acceptable. We don't want to see that here. We don't want that in our bathrooms. We don't want that in our classrooms. We don't want that. So it definitely engages some of those kids, like you said, to look at their school as their house, their community. How do we keep our place up and clean and a place that kids want to be? So I definitely think that the students even took to it as well in a positive way, and saying that, no, we're not doing that. This is not going to happen. We're going to report if we see things. So
yeah, they take a little ownership and pride too.
Yep.
Yeah, and I love the comment too about parents and communicating with parents, so that at home, because we had a conversation about that. Not that things were going on at my daughter's elementary school, but she knows what TikTok is, and just trying to make good decisions and not be too influenced by the social media pressures and things like that might be trending at a time. But thanks for bringing that up. That's worth addressing, especially this week, given how widespread that's been. Sarah, what's something that you learned this week?
I think the biggest learning curve that I've had, especially being year one in a new position, is kind of like right now we're going through, the homecoming week. We're going through the honeymoon phase of school is over, right? Kids are getting into that first kind of big month of September. And so I'm learning that, my communication with kids in the hallway and staying upbeat and being positive and just really trying to encourage the kids is needed. Like you can just tell kids look a little bit more tired. They're getting a little bit more busy, and not just our kids in sports, but even, we're picking up for like marching band competition start this Saturday. The fall play starts in 3 weeks. So you can just tell that the grind, right, is real for a lot of our kids. And so just try to really kind of like touch base with a lot of your kids that are, kind of feeling that a little bit and staying positive, having those conversations. And then also just making sure teachers are aware too of all the things that kids are doing. Because I think sometimes we have parent teacher conference here in a couple weeks. September flies, but it's also one of our busiest months in the fall. So really trying to make sure we're taking the temperature of our kids and make sure they're still doing okay with that first quarter.
Well, okay, so I'm going to play off this then, I guess, and ask, how are you doing? Because you were talking about fall play, parent-teacher conferences, homecoming week. As an athletic director, you're navigating a lot, as all building leaders are, right? But I mean,
oh yeah. I mean, I'll tell you this, every day is different. Every hour you're answering a question or putting out a small fire or making sure something's taken care of, whether it be transportation needs, whether it be, activity passes for kids or big conflicts within like space in your building, whatever it is, it's just you're kind of always the go-to person for a lot of those problem solving moments. So it's really fun because I love that every day I come, I'm dealing with different things. But yeah, it's a lot of work, especially when you're in the middle of a fall season and you're picking up now your clubs and your activities and your fall play. Everything starts picking up. It's kind of nice those first 2 or 3 weeks because you're just setting the stage for the school year. But then once everything's rolling, it gets busier. And yeah, definitely in year one, you feel it. But I have a great team around me. I have a great assistant who honestly is a savior in most of my days because she keeps me on my, like, these are the things we got to do today. So it's been great. But yeah, it's definitely busy. Definitely busy.
Gosh, I can only imagine. But when you hear all those things, but as you said too, a lot of really meaningful work, whether it's, helping to create the experiences like Jeff was talking about that our kids are going to remember maybe for the rest of their lives, or helping, guide them out of a bad decision, or to get, certain supports or into the club that's going to help them feel more invested in the school and being a part of it. So thanks for sharing that out. I'll be really brief with mine. I didn't know what I was going to say for my learn because I was kind of between a few. And I actually recorded a podcast this morning with an educator out of Texas, Andy McNair. She's awesome. And we were talking about intervention strategies and how we might think differently about supporting students when maybe the way we taught it the first time didn't really help. Didn't really like resonate with them. Maybe it worked for 90% of the students in the class, but maybe for that 10%, what we could do differently to try to make sure we reach all learners. And so shameless plug, but still a plug nonetheless. On Monday, the Good Life EDU podcast, we're going to post that conversation and it was awesome. I had so much fun like learning about her lens for thinking about intervention differently and would certainly want to encourage other people to check that conversation out because it was awesome. And supporting all learners is challenging. It's really hard to do. So some cool thoughts there. So last but not least here, I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about leadership. I say more because I've heard it consistently throughout this entire conversation today with both Jeff and Sarah. And so I'm going to leave it really broad, Jeff, and say whether this is anything from theory down to something you think as you're walking through the halls day in and day out. What would you impart as far as how you see your role in leadership, building leadership?
Yeah, that's a huge topic. I mean, you could do,
right.
Hundreds of podcasts or whatever, but one thing especially right now with where the climate is and, some of the stresses, it's really how do you find opportunities for staff, to me is important. Staff to, celebrate together, have social time together, build that trust and relationships with each other. Because again, teaching's hard, and being a good educator is hard. And so we got to have times to celebrate also. I mean, I'm a firm believer in work hard to play hard as well. And I think it's one of those things as a building leader, at least in my belief, is we can set those types of things in motion, and we can give staff opportunities to socialize together, to team build together, compete together, because it's going to make a difference in this foundation when things do get tough, or the COVID cases are spiking, or the discipline is this, or the grades are that, whatever it is. You got to take care of staff, and you got to find ways for staff to celebrate and have fun together.
Yeah. Can you give us one example of one? I know, while you're thinking about it, we used to have a staff golf outing at Westside for the coaches that I absolutely loved. I look forward to that every year.
We try to do stuff, as a school. Beginning of this year, for example, we had an amazing race competition. So each of our teachers had to draw a card, and they got into a race group that they necessarily didn't pick. But then we have different challenges that they had to go through the building. And as they went through the challenge, if they were successful as a team, they got a playing card in an envelope, kind of like a poker run. And then so we brought them all back into the cafeteria. And some groups had 5 cards, some had 8, depending on what they completed. But we had water balloon tosses, balloon pops, mystery maze, just different events that as the team they had to compete. And so then they pick up, open up all their cards, make the best poker hand, and we gave out just small gift certificates for the team that won. So, you're getting communication, you're having some fun competition. It was crazy. Sarah was always one that, she'd be running around bonkers. So if you're on Sarah's team, man, look out, because she's dragging you by the collar and you're going
right.
to win. We try to do things like that. We've done, s'more cookouts. We've had, we've done slip and slides down the back hill at the last day of school. We've done Christmas parties or winter holiday parties. You got a bowling. We've done bowling after conferences. There's tons of things you can do. And you have to recognize staff need a break. Staff need to have fun. And I think how do you have staff recognition as well, I think is important.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you mentioned that too, Jeff, because that's one thing that I've loved that our principal here does every week is he sends out on his weekly newsletter to all the staff. He ends it every week with a recognition list where each staff member can nominate another staff member for something that they saw this week that just kind of went above and beyond. And I think, especially in education, that just goes a long way when you see your colleagues nominating or recognizing your hard work or your willingness to help out in some way for the school. And so I really appreciate and I look forward to those emails. I think those are really a great way of celebrating, like you said, just all the teamwork that you see in a building that may go unnoticed. So I know that that's one thing that we do too in the celebration mindset.
That's terrific. And that's something, so it made me think of, did a podcast, in the spring with a couple principals, one of which will be on next week, Danny Beerbaum, who is was a former NERCSA teacher of the year, I think. But Danny shared that what she likes to do in her elementary school is to write notes to and mail it to the families of the teachers so that the families open it up and it says, hey, your, mom or your wife, or your husband is, and just gets into that and doesn't, obviously not everybody every week kind of thing, but just periodically. And that made me choke up, to think about that too. And just thinking of all the creative ways in which people find opportunities to build teachers up, to recognize them and encourage them to continue to be at their best for students, because like you said, it's hard. It's a tough job. So from a leadership standpoint, Sarah, was that your leadership piece there?
I was just going to say, I think servant leadership is huge in our positions. I think, especially with me and what I try to do is, I'm trying to, you're facilitating a lot in the building, but you also are helping so many different departments and teachers and coaches and sponsors and administrators. So I just think, my kind of leadership shout out is always trying to serve those around you first. Because you might have a to-do list of things that you really got to get done, but at that moment, you might be needed elsewhere. And so it's sometimes remembering that, who do I really need to help first? What do we need to facilitate to happen first? And then my list can come later, because I think that really helps the building run smooth. And honestly, Jeff did a great job at that at Bellevue East of always looking for ways that he could serve our teachers and our staff. And I also am trying to bring that same mindset to Elkhorn High. Is sometimes if it's lunch duty and I'm out there every day wiping tables and making sure that our custodians have extra set of hands, especially during this time. I'm going to make sure that I make that a priority. Or greeting kids as they walk in every morning. I always have emails I got to read, but you know what? That's 7:55, 8, 10, 15 minutes. That's when I get to interact with the kids. And so just making sure that you're really kind of feeding in your good energy into your building, I think is huge.
Amen to all of that. I could not agree more. And as does your sister, I would say too. And then, but you're right. You're right. This is, I don't know. I'm so grateful to the two of you for taking some time to come onto the show and share, and for us to do this each week, because you are both amazing leaders, and your buildings are better for having you in them, and that's a trickle down effect from there, right? Like if you can best support teachers to the best of your ability, then they can be at their best for students and learning, and gosh, it just is so powerful to think about that as. We hear different people come in and show that that's going on consistently across Nebraska. And so thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Sarah, for taking a little bit of time. Thank you for your leadership, and enjoy homecoming and all the great things that are going on here this fall. So appreciate
we had a big win last night. So we had our football game last night, and our dance is Saturday. So I don't know about Bellevue East, but we're like to the halfway point. Football, check, got the W. Now we got our big dance outside on the stadium on Saturday night.
Yeah, we're still a week away, but you know how all the planning goes. But
oh yeah,
appreciate you touching base again, Andrew. Always love talking to you. You always have great ideas.
Yes,
I certainly love to see Sarah, man. I can't wait to see where she goes, and her star shines bright. And man, she's going to be, like I say, future leader for years to come for sure.
Well, thank you. And like I said, Andrew, I appreciate all that you're doing for education. You're such a good advocate for our profession. And so this is a great idea. It's a great podcast I'm going to follow for future notice too. And Dr. Wagner, always great to talk to you. Always.
Hey, my door's always open. Phone's always on.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. And we'll look forward to having you back on sometime soon.
Hey, will you let us know if we had more likes than Kim and Brian?
Yes.
I will. I'll delineate that out in a
for Sarah. Competition for Sarah.
Gotta know.
Stevens and Iman from last week. So that was a great way to close it out. So thank you so much, both of you. And like I said, we'll check back in soon.
Sounds great.